There was a,
I've got it. Nope, I've got one here.
there was a little glitch in Zoom that let me know. So let me, so Michael called the meeting to order. So if you just want to go around and say your name again, because it looks like there was something.
Michael,
Maria Gallo,
Tammy Sagbusian,
Cindy Warner,
Chad Belden.
Heather Dunphy's here taking minutes, and I am Lynn Blair. And okay, so I think we are good to go now. Okay, so just to reiterate what I just said, summer reading opening days, June 25th, 10 to 12:30. We have got our lineup of summer reading programs ready to go. And I am working on buttoning up the final fiscal year end budget, which ends June 30th. So getting all of our info materials spent. I'm also working with the Pioneer Valley Library Collaborative, which is a group of libraries. We did this last year to plan events for Climate Preparedness Week, which is the 24th to 30th of September. So we're going to try to do a lineup of programs between all the participating libraries. So like Agawam, West Springfield, Granville, all in this little area. I'm still working on them with that. I did send, as I mentioned last time, I sent our emergency procedures. I wrote up a 30-page draft of emergency procedures that I sent in to the police department a couple months ago. And I checked in and they're still reviewing it. I've asked for some type of training for our library staff here, because I've heard from several staff members that in light of everything that's been happening, they're concerned. They're concerned for their safety. And I would really love to see some type of specific training to our building, and have them come in and look. You know, we can write up a procedure for a fire drill. That's pretty standard. However, you know, a lockdown. Our building is really wide open. There's not really many places to go if we had to lock down. So I'm really trying to get somebody to come in and look at our building and to help me draft a plan, because I mean, it's not my area of expertise and I don't want to make the judgment call on that. So unfortunately, they're still reviewing our draft. It's been a little while, and I'd like to have it ready to present to our staff, to train our staff. But until they give the final approval, I can't go
did they
forward.
give you any hint as when it might be ready?
No, I don't have an idea of when it'll be ready. And, you know, I've asked a couple times for training, and it sounds like they're trying to outsource to an outside agency, but that outside agency's staff are in transition. So they're trying to hook us up with the schools, and when the schools do their training. However, I feel like the schools, what their training is going to be very, very different from what we do here. So I'm just kind of looking for some feedback from you guys, because I feel like our staff are really worried. And, you know, this is not something that I'm equipped to handle. I'm really trying to get some assistance in to train us and to at least, you know, I mean, put our staff's mind at
Have
ease.
there been something like that done at other libraries that you could see?
I could potentially see if we can get an outside agency to come in and do some type of training. However, I don't want to, you know, step on anybody's toes, and, you know, it's kind of a.
So who are you talking to about reviewing your emergency
That's all,
procedures?
yeah, it's all over at the police department.
All over?
Yep,
this
yep.
department?
The select board at one of their recent meetings, I think it was the last meeting or the meeting before, they commented that they want to meet with the schools to discuss their plan, and they said they'll probably do it in executive session or whatever. But they want to have a clue as to where the schools are in terms of dealing with those types of issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does the library have a set number of fire drills that they are required to do a year like the schools do?
Nope. We just have the fire department comes in and they inspect all of the fire extinguishers and they get the alarms tested. However, many times a year they're required to. but no drills are held. So, I'm really trying to get something in motion, mostly, I mean, we need to have training on an active shooter situation or something like that. And, unfortunately, I don't want to keep waiting because, people have expressed to me that they are genuinely afraid.
So I'm gonna jump in and
Yes.
say, I don't think you have to convince us that you need it.
Yeah.
I think you need to figure out how to talk to the town, the police department to make it happen. And I think if you do something like talk to the school and say, hey, we want to have an official partnership where, because we're all in the same general area, we're all working together for our emergency plan, we need to be like part of that, then it will become imperative, because the schools and the police department have to work together, that if you become part of that plan, they will have to work with you
Gotcha.
and be more on it.
Okay. Yeah, that's a fair point.
Otherwise, you might be on the bottom of the pile. There's lots of other things.
Yeah. But you're on the same campus.
Right.
So
We are on the
Mhm.
same campus,
if they don't make you part of that system, then they look bad. You don't want to.
Yeah, no, I see your point, and I'll see if they have a point person at the schools that they work with specifically for this. Because ever since I've been here, I know I've mentioned since I first started here that we need to have some type of training, and I've been trying to make it happen. So that's, a fair point. I mean, I would like to have somebody come here and look at our building. So I'm happy, to work with the schools and get that going, as long as they're willing to kind of come here and also take a look at, our facility.
I would think they would have to, because it's a different building. It's not like wherever they go at which Powder Mill or Woodland or the high school, you still, even just for a fire drill, you have a different location, just getting out safely. If there was an active shooter, where to go, it's completely different.
And all of the schools that I've ever worked at specifically had plans wherein if something was happening, they needed a place to be.
Yeah.
And so that evacuation piece, you have to be included in that, again, because you are on the same swatch.
Who's the contact person at the police department?
The one I've been working with is Lieutenant Banish.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll see if I can figure out who their point person is and go from there and try to get involved. I
Does
don't
the
want
high
to.
school currently have a security officer?
There's a school
safety
resource
officer, yeah.
officer. Yeah. Yep, and I can see if I can get in touch with him and try to figure that out as well.
You're down 2 days in doing that because school's gonna be ending.
That's true, but he's still, I know he works, other positions on the force as well, so.
Right,
So I'm sure he
right.
kind of moves around. It was mentioned to me back in sometime between February and April that the school was gonna have a training that they were gonna get us in on, and then it just never came into being. So I'd rather, I don't want to spend the entire summer waiting for school to
Right,
start up
right.
again, so. So I mean, even if we can find something else out in the meantime.
I mean, if you really want to be super proactive and obnoxious, which is my general way of doing things, I'd go straight to the superintendent and be like, listen, we're all in the same area. We need to be on the same page. Who is your person at this school, and this school? I want to reach out and talk to them, and you need to facilitate a meeting.
Okay, so I will reach out to the schools and definitely see what we can get going. And hopefully, I mean, summertime is the best time essentially to do a training for our staff, because we can close for a morning and get everybody's training in. So hopefully something will come. I will keep checking in to see the status of my 30-page document that I wrote. I know it's a lot to review. I do think, it should be reviewed and we should get that back, ASAP, especially in light of everything that's going on. So I will work on that project. The last thing that I do have to mention is I don't know if anybody else has any ideas about our weeded materials. Because as I mentioned last time, or several meetings ago, we're trying to get caught up on our weeding. So we have to remove old stuff from the collection, if it's not used anymore, kind of getting out of shape, damaged, anything like that. And so I've been trying, thankfully, the Friends said that they were not going to help move anything, and they're not having a book sale this year. So we are kind of ending up with an assortment of boxes piling up everywhere. You guys did make the suggestion to see if the maintenance department would do that. At this time, I know the maintenance department is still understaffed. And I do feel like it's not necessarily their responsibility to be carting around all of our stuff. So Nancy's done, thankfully, she said we can load up her pickup truck, but she can't load them in there. And I've been told by my doctor to not lift anything heavy. So we've been trying to coordinate with the guys from the fire department to come load up the truck so Nancy can drive them over to Agawam, because the fire department guys, they're on duty, so they can't really leave town boundaries. So it's just been kind of hard to kind of coordinate a time that those two can come together. The guys are available and we can get her truck to take everything over there. So, I mean, I don't know if anybody knows anybody else with a truck or anybody that's can help us move anything.
National Honor Society has to do community service. Again, it's very close to the end of the year, but if you can contact the advisor at the high school.
And is this something you think they might do on like a regular basis?
I mean, they always need community service hours.
Okay.
So,
I mean, yeah, so, but most of them, they probably don't drive, but they could come and help.
They could load the boxes if nothing else. Yeah.
at least 50% of their families have a pickup truck.
Yeah, I can try them. If anybody else has any ideas for over the summer too.
How
then
many
that-
boxes do we have?
there's some over in the corner. I have some on the cart behind Jen, and then I also have a bunch back in the staff area. Just because we haven't been heavily weeding while we've been short-staffed and throughout COVID. So we've been trying to catch up because all the shelves are getting very tight. So we're trying to catch up so people can actually put stuff back in shelves.
Where are they going to?
We bring them to the Agawam bindery. What's that?
I mean, Agawam, but whereabouts in Agawam?
It's by the industrial park. I'm trying to think of what else is near it.
No, but I got you right here.
I think, yeah, if it's over, I'm trying to think the road that it's off of, but I can't off the top of my head. It's about like a 5-10 minute drive from here, so it's not too bad. But we've just been kind of loading everything up, and it used to be me loading everything up into my car, but I unfortunately can't lift anything heavy for the time being, so it's kind of piling up and getting a little out of hand. So, I mean, I can touch base with the Honor Society and see if there's anybody that, might be interested in helping out.
Nancy's a good friend of mine. I'll get in touch. I have guys who can help.
Okay, great. Okay, and then that was it for communications. So everybody has a copy of the May minutes.
Minutes will have to be quite repeated.
Yes, I
We
tend
don't
to
have a
write.
stenographer.
No, I tend to write really detailed minutes just because that's what I'm used to doing. It helps to pass the time while I listen to myself talk. So, is there any changes, corrections? I think I tried to catch all the typos that I made.
I read the minutes through at home and I didn't see anything certainly very obvious.
As long as it's not like a glaring typo then.
Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes?
And I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That was unanimous. move on to the director's report.
Okay, so everybody has a copy of the report and also the second page for just the evening statistics, which I've been keeping track of as well. So it looks like May was another pretty successful month. So we hit over 4,000 circulations again, which is wonderful. March was an odd month with 5,300 circulations. So it was an oddly busy month. So we're back down to 4,000 in May, which is still really wonderful for a non-summer month. 16 new cards again. Still pretty good on the door count, computer use, reference questions. I think everything was looking pretty good.
Do we have any idea why March was so over the top seller?
Not a clue. Not a clue. It could just be that, I mean, March tends to be a longer month than most, but I cannot say for sure. That one is a mystery to me. Unless, I mean, it also could depend on our programs, and I know there was quite a few pretty well-attended programs in March, and I know when like the kids come in for story time, usually they leave with like armfuls of books, so I think they did like 2 or 3 story times in March, so that probably helped it out a bit.
It's June 2022 instead of
I will list. Where is that? Where does it say that?
on the second page.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. I was thinking ahead to spring. Yeah, I'll make that change. Did anybody have any additional questions about those? So I will move on to old business if everybody's ready. So old business, we're still working on the LSTA grant. I have funding for about 2-ish more programs that I'm hoping to get scheduled for either August or September. And our study spaces are finally open. Yes, at long last, they are open and they've been used. Yay, somebody used it on the first night that I opened them, which is really great. So I was happy with that. Yeah, and I think they will be great little spaces for people to want. Because people have been asking for a long time for something kind of set aside. Okay, and then everybody should have a copy of the children's room mural. So this is the final draft presented by Chelsea. She added the RAM as requested. And so this is only kind of like a Photoshop mock-up. So it's not as detailed as the actual mural would be. It's just kind of a map to place everything out and to show everybody what it will look like. So this is the final draft. She is hoping to get this done, I think we said the end of August. So we're hoping to get the maintenance department in to prime the wall so everything will be ready to go. And yeah, so and then we're doing the Friends are funding half of it, and we're funding the other half out of the library state aid account.
Are you gonna do anything special to like present it?
Oh yeah, we're definitely going to get a plaque for Chelsea, and to say who it was funded by, and yeah, we'll probably do like not like a grand opening, like an unveiling or something.
Cocktails in the children's room.
Maybe mocktails. I don't know about the cocktails. Yeah, so we'll do kind of some fun unveiling. I'm sure Molly's incredibly creative. I'm sure she'll come up with something fun to kick it off. So yeah, I think that'll add a lot of brightness and color in there, and we are looking forward to it. And then lastly, in the old business, I just sent over this afternoon a request to hire our summer page. So hopefully we will have that person start. Usually we try to have them start by the end of June. The position only runs for 8 weeks. So it's a temporary position, and they help out with, summer is generally very busy, so they help out with shelving, any kind of summer reading program prep we need. So hopefully we can get that person approved and starting by the end of this month. We had a new circulation person start in May, and she decided that the position wasn't for her. So we've hired a new circulation position. If you've come in during the daytime, her name is Alyssa, and she has done great so far, and I think she'll make a good member of the team. And okay.
Are we assuming that the permanent staff, things are gonna go, with some people being out, et cetera, that you talked about a few months ago?
Yes, yeah, so we're having some staff taking some leaves coming up this year. And so we are going to work with the staff we have. We did ask for an additional part-time position in our budget request this year that we didn't get. So we are just going to try to do our best with the staff that we have to get us through it. And, you know, I mean, unfortunately, if we do have to close early, open late, it's kind of the worst case scenario. We generally try to do everything we can to avoid doing that, but we are just gonna have to go ahead and do the best we can with the staff we have. Definitely the summer page will be a big help to kind of offset a lot of the work this summer. And then I have for everybody in your packet of stuff. So I gave everybody a copy of the old juvenile and adult material selection policies. So as you may be aware of, there's been a lot of talk about challenges on books. And mainly I've kind of seen it happening in school libraries, but it's also happening in public libraries as well. Is that, you know, people will challenge a book title. Why does the library have this? And there's different ways that people can make a challenge. Mostly it is, you know, people will bring the book up to the librarians, have a discussion. Why does the library have this title? They feel like it doesn't belong on library shelves. But also there have been cases, and some in Massachusetts, where people check the book out for themselves and then just refuse to bring it back. So there's kind of different ways that this is being expressed. So I decided, you know, it's been on my to-do list, but I figured now is the best time to officially take a look at our policies and see what needs to be updated. I know for the adult one, the date on it is approved at the December 2003 trustees meeting. So I'm assuming that the juvenile one does not have a date on it, but it's probably kind of the same, you know, probably slightly older than the other one. So what I did was I took a look at our policies, which I think were pretty strong to begin with. I mean, they cover a wide area. However, what I don't like is that we had two different policies with different wording in each of them. And I don't think that that's the best practice. I think that can kind of leave things up for questions. So I created a draft, and I basically took our materials collection policies and I put them into one so that there's standard wording for everything. You know, it covers the gamut of the juvenile, young adult, and adult policies, but they're all in one so that the wording is pretty much the same. And everybody, I did a lot of highlighting. So everything in highlights are kind of the biggest areas that I made changes and edits to. So, and I think when we're discussing this, I think what my staff and me want to know, and we just want to make sure that, you know, that the Board of Trustees is supportive in our goal to make our collection as diverse as possible, to meet people's needs. And we want to know that our board is behind us, and, you know, we're making the decisions on what we order to the best of our ability, using resources like the review magazines, any type of publications that we get that do book reviews. And we just want to make sure that, you know, that our board is behind us, and that, you know, we are trying to do our best. and make sure that our collection is balanced and fair and equal. And so I didn't know if anybody had any questions about kind of anything that's going on, the current climate of the book banning or anything like that.
I'll just go on record saying that when I come to sign the warrants, my favorite thing to do is to see all what's coming in. I'm excited.
Do you want the weekly New York Times book review section on the New York Times?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we use the New York Times bestseller list that we
Right.
get out of the paper, but we don't get anything, more detailed than that, so.
Okay, I'll get you the review. Since I read the paper every week.
Yeah, we will gladly take that. So when I'm looking at our policy, as I said, what I decided to do was combine everything because it didn't make sense to have two different policies with different wording. I think that kind of leaves an open door for questions. So basically, how I worded this was that, the authority and responsibility, the Board of Trustees sets the policies. You guys vote on the policies, determine the policies, but the different departments, the children's librarians, our young adult librarian, and myself, who I order for the adult department, we all order our own, but we follow the policy set by the trustees. And I was very specific in our criteria for selection because we do mainly order from the book review magazines we get, but also book review websites. And but we also order things based on popular interest. I mean, so something, kind of like a fluff novel that's being made into like a Hallmark movie, it's not going to show up on the New York Times bestseller list. Well, it may if people buy it, but it's not going to show up in like a
P.S. I
professional.
Love You is an awesome series.
Yes.
Just saying.
Yes. Yes. So we order things based on popular interest as well. For example, if something's going to be made into a TV show, movie, yeah. So then we might add that to our collection. So there's a bunch of different ways that we kind of gauge what we order for our collection. And so I also included in here as an appendix, and I know this is kind of a lengthy policy, but I think that's good in the sense that, we want something to back us up so that we can order and curate our collection confidently. So I also did include the Library Bill of Rights at the very end, which basically summarizes, that people have a right to read what they want and to use the library. And then we should advocate and protect people's privacy and provide materials that people want. So I'm just going through in the highlighted sections and just talking about what I changed or what I added, just to kind of summarize it up to kind of give you guys an idea of what I changed. I also did include a small section on self-published materials because we generally get a lot of people that self-publish items that want to donate to the library. And so we just want to be kind of discerning with those as well, because they may not be something that we would have originally ordered or up to kind of the standard of what we would normally purchase for the library. And I did also mention, that we are not able to take donations because we are still getting quite a lot of requests to take donations, the exception being if the friends were to have a book sale, and in that case we would. And to also include that, if somebody has an item of like, historic value that might have a good home in either the local history collection, that, they could reach out to me, we can make a time, look at what they've got, see if it works for us, or also see if it might be better fitted for the Historical Society as well. And I also included on page 3 was the access to library materials, just a statement that we do serve a variety of users from a variety of backgrounds. So something that may be of interest to someone may not be an interest to somebody else, or somebody may find it, offensive. I mean, so we want to make sure that we have a diverse collection that appeals to everybody.
So this is just for the permanent collection?
Yes.
Because there's an extended collection through CW Mars that people have access to. So
Yes.
this is just mainly
Yep, this is just mainly us, what's here
owned by the
in-house.
library.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly, exactly. And then one of the major changes I made was with the reconsideration procedures. So in the original policies, what would happen is, so if a patron had a concern about a particular item, they would fill out a library resource reaction form. And then the director would answer their questions in writing. And then if the patron felt that their concerns weren't met, that they could fill out a request for reconsideration. And then that would be brought to the Board of Trustees. And I feel like it's almost too many steps and it's almost too redundant. Because, if a patron were to fill out a library resource reaction form, and I think I have a copy of it here as well. Yes, so appendix blank, because I removed it, but I left it in here if you guys wanted to peruse it. So this is what they would fill out, and then I would respond to them in writing. So I almost feel like this isn't the step that would get the best reaction from the patron, because they want to have, if somebody has a really big concern about an item, they want to have a discussion about it. They don't want me to write a letter to them, because I'm basically just going to say what the policy says. This is why we bought it. This is our parameters for how we order materials. So I feel like that step is almost redundant, and it's not going to solve, it's just going to prolong the concern. Because if we only meet once a month, they want their concern addressed on a reasonable timeline.
Mhm.
So my suggestion was to remove that completely. And if somebody had a concern about an item, they would fill out upon Appendix B, which is a request for reconsideration. And then this is what they would fill out. And then I would put it on the agenda for the trustees meeting. And then that way it kind of cuts out all that time, they fill out the form, I send a letter back, because I'm not going to say anything new than what's already in our policies and how we order materials. But if they fill out this, then we have all this information, and then we can bring it to the board, and then they can discuss it with the board. How does I feel like that was a
But
big
that gives
step.
them-
How does everybody feel about
So-
that?
So somebody came in yesterday
Mhm.
with a complaint. Their complaint would be addressed today, but if they came in,
Technically, it needs to be put on the agenda, and the agenda has
Right.
to be posted in advance.
okay,
So technically, if somebody were to come in yesterday, I wouldn't be able to edit the agenda for today, so it would be on the next agenda. But let's say somebody came in last week and I have the form,
right?
and I did say specifically, it needs to be completed in its entirety, so that I have the form and the
But I think
details.
this interim step at least gives them a more immediate response,
Mm.
that they're getting a response from the director of the
Oh,
library.
yeah.
And then given, if they're still upset that this item's in the library, it gives them another recourse to appeal to, Board of Trustees.
Yeah, so in my thinking, so if we were to remove this extra step and just fill out the request for reconsideration, what I would do in the meantime for them is I would contact them. So they're not, they're not just gonna hand me the form and everything's gonna be hush hush until the meeting. So they would hand me the form and I would be in touch with them to discuss the date of the meeting, when it was gonna be discussed. And also to provide them a copy of the policy so that they have the policy in hand so that they're prepared for the meeting. So once they hand in the form, I'm not, going to completely ignore the
Right, right.
request.
No, I'm just, so you keep it in as part of a policy, after you win the lottery and have gone to that island to spend the rest of your days and a new person is coming in, it's at least spelled out what the intent was. So that I just want to make sure that the person that finds something in the library that upsets them,
Oh, yeah.
that they get an immediate response, even if it is, this is our policy and why it was selected, and you know, the
Yeah.
next recourse is to go in front of the
I mean,
trustees.
I feel like most of the interactions, when these things happen, usually the person's first reaction isn't, I need to fill out a form and get this submitted.
Right,
Basically, in my experience, when somebody has an issue with an item, they're gonna want to talk to somebody first. And so,
right.
we would talk to the patron, and then this would ultimately be, the next step. If they felt that, if somebody brought a complaint to me, I would explain our policy. This is why we do things. This is how we order our materials. And then if they felt like that didn't answer their question, then they would move on, then they could bring it to the board to discuss.
Because my assumption is their argument would be, this is not appropriate for an 8-year-old. And then maybe after further your conversation with them, you say, yeah, maybe it should be in YA instead of going from. Or maybe not, depending on what the circumstances are.
I'm wondering if when I think about people who usually say, like, I don't think this book is right for general population, it's usually parents, right?
Yep.
I'm wondering if what needs to be maybe added is that until it's gone to the trustees and the conversation has been had, the librarian will hold the book. Now, I'll be the first one to jump in and be like, no, all the books stay.
Yep.
I really like books, and I think everybody should read everything. But I think if you have a parent who's that concerned, that's going to be what de-escalates the situation faster than anything else.
Yeah, and I did include in here that if an item is brought to our concern or to our attention, that
It will remain available.
it will remain available. Yeah, and that's generally, and I mean, every library does it differently. And that's why I'm looking for your feedback. So, because I've been attending, there's been a lot of meetings and trainings on this over the past month or so. And that's kind of the general consensus, is that the libraries leave it available so that, we want to make sure we're not censoring anything. We want to be sensitive to people's needs and their requests, but we want to also make sure that they're not censoring. So what other libraries, and I have it in here as well, is that it would stay available until the trustees meeting. And if the trustees decide, well, it doesn't belong in this collection, or it doesn't belong in here at all, then we would either remove it, recatalog it, move it to another section, so that, we're not just taking something away on a quick decision that might be of use to something else, because that would be the worst thing to me is, if somebody has a concern and we say, okay, let's remove it till it's discussed. If somebody else came looking for it in the meantime, that could
No,
lead
I
to
don't think
another
you
issue, and then,
I don't think you should remove it.
they're upset because it's been removed.
Making something unavailable and removing it from the shelf are two vastly different things. If I come looking for a book and say, hey, I can't find it, do you have it? And you say, oh, yes, it's over here. It's still available.
My concern is that I just don't want to make something, have them be like, well, the librarian removed this and now I can't have access to it. It's kind of a slippery slope. I mean, I can say justifying it either way. I mean, ultimately it comes down to the trustees' decision on what you want to do for the policy. And I'm willing to do whatever you guys decide and work with. That's just my 2 cents. I can see it going either way, and that some people might have I can see it justifying it either way.
See, sometimes people might have an initial reaction to some book or whatever. But if they've actually got to fill out a form, or if it comes to the trustees, they actually have to show up. I can only remember 1 or 2 patrons coming to a trustees meeting in the last 15 or 16 years. And one time it was my kid didn't destroy the book, so I don't want to pay for it. And there may have been maybe 1 other at the most. So it just, they've had a little cooling off period. If you don't want little Johnny or Mary to read the book, you're the parent,
Hmm.
but
But
you're making the
also,
rule for everyone in town.
also to hand them a form and they get to sit down and write out their complaints or their reasoning or what have you. It's a procedural thing where they feel like they're at least being heard and they're
Right.
at least being able to voice their complaints. I don't think the book should necessarily be pulled from the shelf or anything like that, but knowing that we're gonna take this seriously, it's gonna go for review, it's gonna go in front of the trustees. You being able to explain the procedures and the policies for selecting books, I think. I don't think the book should be pulled off the shelf for one person stating a complaint. I think it needs to be, the person voices their complaint, they put it in writing, it's reviewed by you, then it's reviewed by the board, there's a process put in place.
The key thing is that one person in an area isn't deciding for everyone in the greater Southwick area
Right.
what can be read or what can't. It would be the same as if I walked in, I said, I'm disgusted. You say, well, why? You subscribe to the New York Times, or you subscribe to the Wall Street Journal, or you subscribe to that rag called the Springfield Republican. Yeah. Why should I be the decider for the entire?
And believe me, when I went around and collected my signatures to become a library trustee, I had more people say to me, and I need what, 60 signatures? Out of those 60 people, I've had probably 5 or 6. So there's a percentage that said, do not ban books. Make sure that, we never fall into all the stuff that they're reading in the news of, that's going on in other areas. And so it's just kind of funny to me that that was what was very important with the people that I met going door to door. So having a procedure in place where things can be questioned and reviewed and brought up to the board, most definitely, but I think the books need to stay on the shelves until a determination is made.
Okay, so I can leave if that's.
I
Maria?
have one other comment,
Yes.
a little different from what everybody's been talking about. On this last page, you have in red that the submitted forms will become public record.
Yes,
Now,
that was my question.
Wait. I think on what you sent us earlier and what I read at home, those forms said that it would not become part of the public record.
I think,
So
well,
that's
I don't
why I'm
think it
wondering
says
why you're
that.
questioning and what the issue is and why it's written either way.
yeah, I mean, I don't know where it said that it wouldn't become part of the public record.
I don't see it on these pages you printed out.
Yeah.
But,
It might have been in the old policy, because I don't recall adding any of that, that it not become public record, because, and what I mean, it was highlighted in red because other libraries policies that I looked at have that the submitted forms will become public record. And I was kind of questioning, I want to share the form. If there's a form submitted and we're up for discussion on something, I want to share it with the board. And if it's shared with the board,
It's public
technically
record.
becomes
Right.
public record. So I wanted to make sure that, that's not to necessarily discourage anybody from submitting the form, but they're aware that if they submit something that, the board will see it and it will be discussed at a meeting.
oh, that's what you mean by the public record. It's not going to be a separate issue that's published or anything.
Oh,
Only
no,
as
no,
part of
no,
the
yeah,
meeting minutes.
no,
Okay.
yeah,
I
that
just
it-
wondered
yeah.
why it was written in the old version that it will not be part of the record, and now it's in the new one. And
Well,
to
they
me, in bright red means it's gotta be, you know?
That was just in bright red because that's one of the biggest things that I was questioning,
okay.
was
Over
it
the
whether it
last
needed to
4
be
or
that.
5 years, the state attorney general's office, first you had the open meeting law, and then they've come up with new interpretations of things. 1 or 2 Southwick residents filed complaints with the attorney general's office on the open meeting law against the Board of Selectmen. And the state attorney general's response was, for example, if you're going to interview candidates for a position, you can't say, we're going to interview candidates. you have to name the candidates, the Attorney General's office decided. So then that's making more of it public.
Right.
Otherwise,
Okay.
you could read the agenda at town hall or online and say, oh, we're gonna interview some candidates. There's no names or anything. Now you're naming like, oh, is that the police chief's son? Is that the selectman's brother? All of a sudden, the names are in there. It's just so,
Okay.
that's a technicality.
Right.
It's kind of a
Right.
continuing process for the Attorney General's office. Keeps
Once-
modifying and tweaking.
They want more and more information
Right,
to the public. Okay.
right.
Yeah, I don't see it in here, but I was pretty sure I read it in the art material you sent earlier in the week, because as soon as I saw here and read, I thought, oh, but.
Yeah, I'll take a closer read through, but I don't recall seeing that anywhere else.
Okay, it's fine. I'm just curious as to,
Unless it was,
The
in the Bill of Rights where like,
I don't remember where I saw it, but I
where it
thought
talks about
I
patrons'
thought it was in
privacy.
the old version.
Yeah, but I mean, in the Bill of Rights, it does talk about patron privacy, but that's more in the terms of like, people have the right to privacy for their
Right,
library
right, that's a
card, and what
different-
they're
different
reading and
issue of-
whatnot.
of
Yeah.
Privacy.
Okay, and then to kind of piggyback on the request for reconsideration of materials, also kind of judging off other policies that I've used to create this one. Other libraries have, requests for reconsideration of a program. So like, if to say one of our programs were ever questioned or somebody brought concerns about that, then there's also a separate form for that. Knowing that, and I tried to make it very clear in here that, if there were a concern about a program, it needs to be brought to us in enough time, to have a trustees meeting, but also enough time before the program. So if the board decided that it's something we shouldn't do, that we have time to cancel and that there's time to discuss it before it's canceled.
Listen to the committee against ukulele lessons at the library.
And then the following forms are just the appendices. So there's a recommendation for addition to the collection. And I did specifically say elsewhere in the policy that I wasn't going to keep the recommendation for addition to the collection because, then it's almost the same thing as like when a patron comes up to us and says, I want to place a hold on this book. They have a right to their privacy. So I don't know if there's any other opinions about that, but I just said that we are going to keep record of that. So we have a request for reconsideration form for books, for library programs, and also a copy of the Bill of Rights at the end. So I guess the biggest question that I have for you from the discussion, so do we want to keep the resource reaction form in as a step in the process?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will redo the policy for what I have to include the resource reaction form as a step. So what the policy would say when I write it up is that if a patron has an issue with an item or a program, that they would fill out the resource reaction form, then I would respond to them in writing. And then if they felt like that didn't meet their, that didn't meet their expectations, then the next step would be that they would fill out their request for reconsideration. And then that would be brought to the board.
Right, and then both documents can be reviewed by the board. Maybe they go back and they do more research to come up with more reasoning why, and then that way there, all that information will be there.
Okay. So Mike, is it okay to vote on this policy as
sure.
is, knowing that I'm going to change it to include
Sure.
the resource reaction form? So
And-
that
and-
way I can share this
And-
with the
and
staff.
as the selectmen say, as corrected or
Okay.
as updated.
As amended.
Perfect.
As amended.
So I'm gonna, if this meets everybody's approval, I'm going to update it to re-include the resource reaction form. And then I will make sure that tomorrow all of our staff get a copy and update all of our policy handbooks.
I so move. that we accept the policy as presented with amendments.
Tammy seconds.
All those in favor? Michael
Aye.
McDaniel,
Aye.
yes.
Maria, yes.
Tammy, yes.
Cindy, yes.
Wonderful.
Jen, yes.
I know that was lengthy, so I just want to say thank you guys for your support. And what we do is very difficult because we want to make sure that our collection is balanced and fair, and that everybody has equal access to the materials that they want. So I do appreciate your feedback and your suggestions. And then next thing under new business, very briefly, I already talked about emergency procedures and planning. I just wanted to ask, does the board officially need to vote on the procedures? I mean, because they aren't necessarily policies. They're more of just like a procedure handbook for the staff.
We could probably just comment, you know, when you've got it finalized, you say, okay, that looks good, it's been cleared by
Okay,
the police department, by, you know, whoever else.
great. Okay. And then the last thing under new business is I will eventually find time to start working on our strategic plan. Are there any board members that are interested in? Okay.
Yeah.
Does it matter, Mike? Because I know there's always the question if there's a certain number of board members, it technically becomes a trustees meeting.
As
So
long as we don't have four, because four would be
okay.
a quorum.
So I saw Michael, was that Tammy?
Cindy.
Tammy and Cindy. Okay, great. So I'm
Promise
kind
I
of,
won't show up.
what's that?
Said I won't show up. So don't worry.
Me either.
No, it's, yeah, so we're gonna start doing our strategic plan to kind of plan out the next 5 years. So I really don't want to take up too much of any people's times. Usually what I've done in the past is I've done maybe 2 or 3 meetings over the course of a couple months, just to kind of get some feedback. And so I'm gonna add you guys to a list that I have. I have a couple patrons that are interested in helping out. So I'll see if I can also get maybe 1 or 2 staff members on board, somebody from the Friends, and I'd like to get, you know, more patrons, maybe somebody from the schools as well, if somebody wants to join. So I will keep you guys updated as I try to find the time to get the wheels turning on this.
2 committees ago, or in this case, 2 plans ago, it was the librarian from the middle school. She's since retired, and there
Oh,
was at least
is
one
it Donna?
patron. Yeah, Ken.
Yeah,
And there was, I remember a patron who would come, and she kind of represented people that looked like they're 60 or above. No, which is good. I mean, you're trying to get
You mean the senior population.
right. And I think one of the 2 committees for one of the other plans had a high school student. So
Oh,
you
okay.
get kind of their perspective.
yeah, maybe I'll see if I can get one of, yeah, maybe your daughter's interested. Maybe I'll see if Heather can get one of her volunteers. Because I think it could count as volunteer experience. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I will add you guys to my email list, and then as soon as I'm able to kind of get the ball, my goal is to have it done by next spring. So I'd really like to start getting things going like fall time-ish. Have a couple meetings, give myself a couple months to actually write everything up, and then go from there. And yeah, that was the last thing from me. Oh yeah, I gave everybody a copy of a training. They're unfortunately doing it in the middle of the day, so it's not the best time for everybody. But if you're at all interested, the Board of Library Commissioners is doing a training on kind of like the intellectual freedom, the book banning challenges and whatnot that we've been facing. And it's for a trustee's perspective, so it might be helpful in terms of policies and anything like that. And I do foresee, you know, as more developments come, we'll probably need to revise our collection development policies again, just as new things keep coming up. But
So what is this, like a Zoom?
yeah, yep, they do everything
Okay.
virtually.
Okay.
Yep. I'm not sure if they're gonna be recording it. If they do record it, I'll send it out to people just in case, you know, so if you can't make it, because I know it's at a terrible time, so. But yeah, I do recommend if you can make it, definitely try to. They usually do a very good job with their trainings.
It's limited, there's only 57 seats available,
And it's
That's
tomorrow, so.
statewide.
but statewide.
It
Yeah.
is,
Thursday.
it is.
Yeah, Thursday the 16th.
Okay, if somebody wants to make a motion
There's
to.
one today.
Tammy makes motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Kathleen Mann,
Aye.
yes.
Maria, yes.
Tammy, yes.
Cindy, yes.
To end.